Welcome to Books and Boulders, the podcast where we take a break from climbing, sit back, and dive into the world of adventure books.
Hey, adventure lovers. Welcome to Books and Boulders, your virtual book club for outdoor adventure reads. I'm Melanie.
And I'm Tiffany.
And we are two Black lady climbers obsessed with books and nature and the outdoors. Today we're continuing to dive into Written in the Waters by Tara Roberts. So this past week we read chapters 10, 12, numbers 10, 11, and 12. So I was to say 10, 12, and 13. We read 10, 11, and 12. And just really quickly to recap, Written in the Waters is a book about a woman who has been documenting research that archaeologists have been doing into the transatlantic slave trade, and their main mode, or one of their main modes for research, is through scuba diving. So yeah, I'm excited to continue diving in. Last week was deep. It got heavy.
So heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably still sitting with me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm feeling it too, just because of things that have been going on this week that I've learned about slavery, and I'm just like, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And
in the news or just like on your own research? Okay.
No. So I was at an event this weekend in Baltimore, and Baltimore, as the locals call it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know why I thought, and I know you're from DC, but I don't know why I thought the DMV was just like this tightly interconnected, right next door type of thing, kind of like the boroughs of New York. I guess I don't know. I just had this weird.
Is Baltimore
and
even
like,
the DMV? Interesting. I don't know. I guess so. I think that's contentious.
That's hilarious. That's funny you said that, because that's what some people who are from there even said, that they don't even consider. Like, it's they're like, there's Baltimore and then there's Maryland. Right. So, and there's like this distinct separation of the two.
Right. And because when I think M, I usually think like Montgomery County, Prince George's County. Baltimore is like its own county, and it's just so much further away that from actual DC than like either of those counties that I mentioned. But continue.
Whole news to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just driving up from New York. I don't know. I'm just like, what's up? But during one of the things that I was at, the guy was talking about how historically important Maryland is, and between the people who are from there. But also he made the point to talk about the Annapolis docks being probably, if not one of the most popular, but one of the most significant ports for the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. And then our AI friends let me know, because as soon as I hear something or read something, I need more info.
Yeah.
And apparently there are records indicating that 48 slave ships unloaded their human cargo there in the 20 years leading up to the American Revolution.
Wow.
Yes.
Whoa.
So a lot of our ancestors likely could have come through that.
Wow. That's so interesting. I did not know that, but I do feel like I was at least, I don't know. I know that Baltimore has like a rich history, and it's just, I don't even feel like I've scratched the surface. I haven't personally spent much time in Baltimore. Also, saying the DMV to an actual native Washingtonian, I sound like such a snob. But it's true. Okay. It's a hot take. I feel like the only people who say the DMV are people who are not from DC. I'm gonna just leave it at that. But
that's fair. 100% fair.
Sorry to anyone who's from the M or the V. It's all love. But yeah, that's cool. I feel like I would love to spend more time in Baltimore. I feel like Baltimore has a really rich history, and I feel like the people who are from there or live there like love the shit out of Baltimore, like they are ride or die for it. So cool. Really quickly, I'll check in about how you're doing. It sounds like you're doing well, but I don't know if there's more you want to say.
Yeah, all I'm doing is pittity packing. So I am countdown officially 5 days out from my 21-day European trip.
Wow.
So yeah, I am full on Black Exodus over here. I actually have all of my clothes on my bed, just ready to pack up the video equipment and the podcasting equipment, and
Ooh.
I'm ready to get. I've never packed so many days before a trip before.
Mm.
It's always the day before the day, and then because it's an international flight, my flight isn't until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something.
Hmm.
So I could technically pack in the morning,
Yeah,
but
don't do that.
no, I will not. I am so ready. I am
Yeah.
so ready
Nice.
to be gone.
Yeah.
So that is how I am doing, and that is all I am doing. I'm
Nice.
packing. I'm getting ready. Yeah, I'm probably gonna like vlog every day. I don't know if
Cool.
I'm gonna post it in real time because black woman paranoia.
Yeah, I guess I am okay. I'm not great. uh, but I'm
But
okay.
we're your virtual support, so that's what this is for.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm just tired. I'm pretty tired. I don't know. Like, I feel just constantly inundated with life. Like, I mean, on top of just the regular parts of being an adult and like having multiple responsibilities to juggle and multiple relationships to juggle and all of that, it's like just the news and the media. And I mean, I've never had a president take up so much mental space. Like I know there's always stuff
Mm.
going on, and there are the people who are like locked into politics to varying degrees. But I feel like I remember a time when like the president did not completely dominate news headlines. I mean, it's like every
Yeah,
day, multiple
and
times a
it feels like it's
day.
been a year. It feels like it's been a year.
Yeah. So it's fatiguing, and I just like everything is just bad. Like everything's terrible. Like we're defunding like these like federal agencies that like do a lot to regulate like the health and wellness of people. Where like, you know, just dismantling any protections that we have put up so far against the environment. We're going to war. Like, I don't know. It's just all terrible.
It's
And
like you don't get a
yeah.
minute to breathe. It's like swimming and you're just underwater the whole time. And
Yeah.
it's like as soon as you come up and breathe a little bit, it's back down underwater.
Yeah. So I'm just feeling it. Like the past couple of weeks, I have just been feeling it, and I'm hanging in there. I'm like happy that I have some time off from work and that I can like, spend some time with my family, and hopefully my what is it called? My sympathetic or parasympathetic, whichever nervous system controls the fight or flight response. My cortisol
Mm.
levels are through the roof right now, it feels like. And yeah, whatever. I'm just hoping that they settle and that my fight or flight response is like deactivated when I go to California, and I can like breathe and slow down and relax a little bit. But it all feels like too much sometimes. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry that I'm not great, but I felt like I needed to get that out too.
No, I feel you. And if I wasn't leaving the United States for a significant period of time, I would feel the same way. And I have other, I outside of all that and all that potentially affecting me personally and things in my life personally, I've come to the conclusion that I want to spend the next 21 days trying to practice yoga every day. My goal is to journal every day.
Mhm.
And my number three goal, and feel free to pick a amount of days and do this for yourselves, but and then I want to read every day.
Mhm.
I just want to turn my phone off. And I mean off, not do not disturb, not just put it in the other room where you hear it buzzing and then you go run to it, because we do have this addiction to our phone, and our phone then feeds us that information. And it's not because I'm saying be disconnected. I'm saying we need to turn it off sometimes, because like you said, like either we're going to drown, like we have to be able to breathe for a minute.
Mhm.
Like the thing I was at in Baltimore this weekend was like a political activation. It was a like political convening, but I like my politics and things like that where I can feel like I have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You can give me some direction, use my resources, my skills, and I can do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't just watch the news and feel like I can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now being charged and activated and told this is what you can do, this is how you can be of service, I feel refreshed.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
And I needed it. So, but at the same time, that whole self-care, community care thing is real because this is too much.
Mm-hmm.
And we as Black women, I feel like always feeling more than other people. I don't, maybe that's a lie, whatever. I don't care. That's my truth and that's how I feel. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just feeling a little weary. But I don't know. These things are nice to, yeah, just have a moment to kind of like take a break and connect with a friend. So, yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you for being a
I love that
friend.
show.
Travel around the world and back
Oh
again.
my God. Wait, just really quickly. Who would you be?
I would be, Lord, I'm just gonna call her the little old lady, and they're all old ladies.
Sophia,
Yes,
the mom.
I would be Sophia. I would have. I love how she would say whatever was on her mind. I
Yeah.
liked that real raw, tell you whatever. I watched that show as a little girl.
Yeah. Me too.
And I'm not, and then it's weird to me because I have vivid memories coming home from school and watching Golden
Oh my
Girls.
gosh.
And I had to be like 10, 11.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me
Yeah.
how so many young, especially Black people, were connected to
Oh,
that
I
show.
know. Yeah. My brother watched that show a lot and put me onto that show. But gosh, I think I have moments where I'm all of them, honestly. I feel like I'm rarely Sophia. Like I'm just too, I feel like I'm meek.
You're too nice.
Too nice to be Sophia most of the time. But I can definitely turn on the Dorothy. Dorothy's pretty deadpan too, but I feel like Sophia's
Yeah.
like harsher about it.
Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like I have my Blanche moments. I definitely have my Rose moments. I feel like I resonate with Rose probably the most, like the dumb blonde.
Airheaded.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I love that show. It's so fun. Anywho. Cool.
Yes. Who would y'all be if you're listening? Who would you be?
I
Who's
know.
your golden girl?
Yes.
Ugh,
Oh my gosh. Recipes
just
to
curious.
the gals.
I know.
But yeah, cool. Okay. Well, I suppose we should get into
Talk about
what
a
we
book.
came here for, which
I
is
guess
the
we should talk
book.
about books.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, so chapter 3. Goodness gracious. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. I didn't even really write notes on chapter 10.
Yeah,
It
same.
was so
I
short.
put goes to Afropunk.
Yeah.
That's my notes.
She went to Afropunk, and I think it was just like really important. Afropunk in South Africa, and it was just this release for her. So yeah, I think it just like really, after having gone through such a heavy experience during her travels throughout Africa, I think she really just needed to experience like Black joy and like what feels like Black liberation. And yeah, I think it was just a great experience for her. And that's kind of that. Have you been to Afropunk before?
Oh, many.
Oh,
Well, because I lived in Brooklyn when at least the two times that I've been to Afropunk. I
yeah.
definitely went when Erica Badu headlined.
Hmm.
That was probably my most memorable Afropunk.
Okay. What year was that?
But I've gone at least three times, only in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Is it?
I had to go look.
Oh, sorry. Go
I had
ahead.
to go look it up because I don't think they do it in South Africa anymore.
Oh, but they do it in Paris, though, right? Maybe. I don't know. I
Oh,
thought
do
there
they?
was an
Let me
Afropunk
check.
in Paris.
I'm on their website because I was like, no, I don't. I think they did them. So the only ones that are listed on their website,
Hmm.
and even then, I don't know why, but it says Minneapolis 2022, Miami
Oh.
2022, Black Herstory, Brazil, and Blacktopia.
Hmm.
Those are listed as their festivals. And I'm
Interesting.
like, it's a little odd. So I don't know. And I honestly haven't heard about this year's Afropunk, which is always in August, and I know that because it's always kind of around my birthday
Okay.
time. So I haven't even
Interesting.
heard about the Afropunk in Brooklyn yet.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I
So I
guess
hope
we'll
they
see.
are okay. But if you go to their Instagram, it seems like
Hmm.
things are
They are
good.
definitely going to
I
have to
don't know.
update this website, but
The website, I know.
it is
I think they've just
2025,
leaned
y'all.
it. They've leaned into Instagram and said nobody goes to websites anymore
Yeah, right. Yeah.
except for us old folks.
Yeah. But yeah, wow. I have not been to Afropunk in so long, but what an experience. It's so fun. I hope that for the Brooklyn location they finally change the location because I do remember like in the later years that I went, I haven't been probably in like 6 years, but I know in the later years that I went, like it just started to get so crowded in that tiny little park. But
Oh, Commodore Barry? Yeah,
yeah.
I think they do still have it
Oh
there.
my
And
God.
I agree. I think that's why I kind of got over it. I mean,
Mhm.
also because musically, the people that I wanted to see, like really never had seen before, wanted to see, always played earlier in the day because I
Mm.
like the emerging artists.
Hmm.
But then of course I paid y'all this money to see the headliners, but I
Right.
really but I don't want to be there all day and you can't go in and out.
Yeah.
So it's like I live in Brooklyn. I just want to go up to my Bed-Stuy apartment, come roll back around, but you
Right.
can't do
That's kind
that.
of wild that you can't do that. Yeah. Hmm.
And then what really hit me was the way these multi-stage festivals for me are not it.
Yeah.
I am a very diverse music lover, and I don't know how they decide who plays on stage A and who plays on stage B, but I have to end up picking
Mm-hmm.
because if you want to get a
Mm.
spot, cause as you said, it's crowded.
Mm-hmm.
You got to lay your spot, your blanket down on one side, or come with a big group, and some people can stay over here. But then you're running back and forth from stage to stage to
Hmm.
try to see the people. It's kind of the same thing with like Roots Picnic.
Hmm.
I just got to the point where I don't think I'm built for festivals like that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
no, me either.
if I can see those artists in small venues, which being in New York I can, so I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out on a Tuesday night than be outside all weekend trying to go back and
It's
forth
just standing in
and I go.
lines, standing in crowds.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
get it. Some people are going there for the culture. They're
Yes.
not going for, they don't look at it as it is. It's a cultural festival. It's not just a music festival. So there's a
Totally.
lot. If you're just there to see the fashion and the styles and the this and the that,
Which is like
cool.
its own experience, but yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
If you want to be stared at, definitely that's your moment to really, get your picture taken left and right.
Yeah.
Although I'm not photogenic, so
What? Stop.
yes, I'm not, no, y'all, okay, whatever.
I'm
But
looking at
yeah,
a photo of you right now. I
no,
mean,
you're
it's
looking at me,
yeah,
but
but it's a
when a
picture.
picture is not
Okay.
the
All
same. I'm
right.
telling you.
Okay.
I'll send you some pictures because I'm like, I don't know if I will ever post any of these photographs of myself. But
Well,
anyway,
now that you have the bald head, you know.
I mean, I have to because when I see pictures of myself with hair, I'm like, that's why I want to delete my Instagram. I don't want even that image of me, that
Hmm.
soul or presence of me to even be out there anymore.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
struggling with that. But yeah, Afropunk, where you at?
Yeah,
Cause I
Afropunk.
don't know if
Come
are
to
you in Brooklyn
Albuquerque.
still? Yeah. Do we have to go to Brazil now?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I don't
Wow.
know.
Yeah, Afropunk, what a time. I haven't been, but I in a while, but if it was accessible and easy to get to, I'd be down for a quick little jaunt. I don't know. I do feel you on the crowd, so I think I'm starting to get past that point in my life.
Oh, that literally was just a chapter.
Yeah, it was just like
Oh
one
wow.
page, chapter 10.
Now we get to move on to a whole different on the final section.
Yeah, so we're in a different country now. These chapter 11 was pretty long. Rather than going through like and trying to do a play by play, I don't know. I think I'll just try to kind of start, I don't know, bringing up some things that really stood out to me. So I guess to give a very quick summary, this chapter she spent time in Costa Rica and she wanted to kind of check out the Christianis and Fredericos. I don't want to call them slave wrecks because it doesn't sound like that's what happened, but these slave ships were coming from Denmark and they were bound for a stop in Ghana, which they made, and then they were headed to St. Thomas as their final destination. There was a lot of inexperienced leadership and poor navigation, and there ended up being rebellion by the crew. And so the crew was just like, I'm sick of this shit.
Yeah, like we hungry, we tired.
Yeah, they just like missed their island a couple of times. They're running out of supplies. It was a mess, and so the crew rebelled. The leadership wasn't listening to them, and so they rebelled. They burned one of the ships to the ground, and then somehow sunk the other ship. And then they also released about 600 captive Africans that were on board. I think from what we read, about 100 of these people ended up back enslaved, but around 500 people actually escaped and were free. And legend has it that they intermingled with the indigenous people in Costa Rica at that time, and that the Afro descendants of Costa Rica, this is their ancestry and how they got here. And then she talks about meeting this woman named Maria. Oh my goodness, Maria Suarez Toro, who is the founder and leader of. It was a long title.
That was a long organization name, but respect.
Respect. It was called Centro Comunitario de Buceo Embajadores y Embajadoras del Mar. I could probably translate a couple of those words, but essentially,
Mar. I got Mar.
Del Mar, yes. And I don't actually know. I don't know if embajadores is like scuba diver, but either way, it's a scuba diving program for teens where, they train these teens to scuba dive and dive these slave wreck sites or slave ship wreck sites, and also kind of learn about the history of slavery and the Afro indigenous history in Costa Rica. And it sounds like she's doing just like a lot of work there. The program started initially because Maria moved to Costa Rica because of marriage initially. That marriage didn't work out, but she decided to stick around, and she saw the decline of her local community and she wanted to do something. And the kids expressed an interest in scuba diving, and I think it kind of sort of organically grew into this program that was also about teaching them about the history of Costa Rica and African people in Costa Rica, and making sure that they had a voice and a presence in the narrative and the story that was being told about them and about their ancestors. And so a lot of the time in this chapter is spent kind of like with Maria and just learning more about this program. So some of the issues that I think Maria has is that people don't see this program, we'll just call it Centro for short, but they don't see it really as on equal footing like locally. Maria has done a lot of work. The program started with like a handful of teens, and now it's, well, at least at the time of writing this book, it was around 25 teens who had been trained to scuba dive. And so she's definitely doing a lot of work within her local community, but I think because it's a smaller country, have Americans and other European people don't necessarily see them as, I'm trying to think of the right word, but I don't know. It just sounds like, based on what Maria shared, it sounds like she's constantly running into this issue of having to be validated or having to have her work be validated by Americans or Europeans.
A bigger authority, quote unquote,
Yeah.
Or a more credible source.
Right, yeah. So, having white people, having American people align with this program, it kind of gives it more credibility. And then she also brings up this idea of like the intersectionality of privilege, which I feel like is something that we've come up against like in previous chapters. But she talks about how, like she says, it's not necessarily about color or race, but it's about who has credibility in the world. And I thought that was really interesting because it's like she mentions Tara mentions that, like, oh, like SWP is opening a satellite program here, and Maria kind of gets a little agitated.
Yeah.
Like, and you know,
Like we are
yeah,
opening a program. We let them.
right,
Like,
yeah.
pause.
Yeah, like she really wants to emphasize that this is like a partnership. And it's just so interesting because like one of the people who I guess is leading this effort is Ken, who was one of the founders of SWP, and he's a black man, and Maria is like a white passing woman, it sounds like. And she's like, you know, people it gets more buy-in having Ken as like the face of it, even though he's a black man, just because he's American and people recognize him as being American and probably being a man too, as like just having more competence and like, yeah, more credibility. So I don't know, I thought that that was like really interesting. And yeah, Tara finally gets to dive a slave shipwreck site. Well, it wasn't a wreck. I keep saying that, but it wasn't quite a wreck. But she finally gets to dive a slave site, and I think she anticipates feeling a little bit of sadness, but feels a lot of agency and pride. During her time in Costa Rica, she meets with several community members and just continues to learn about the history of Black people in Costa Rica, the Afro descendants, stolen land, how land was stolen by the government. Just
That
a tale
is,
as old as time.
yo. I learned so much. This is why I love to read,
Yeah.
because I was just like, a, and I know you're going through this, but
Yeah.
a did not realize that CC, whose full name we will not say, also discovered, and
Oh,
just be clear, I am using air quotes,
yeah.
discovered Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. Like,
Right.
bro was on a ship going around just like deciding that things that had humans on it was discoverable.
Yeah.
But I was like, I didn't know he also, quote unquote, discovered Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And then the fact that these people, like, the government said, oh no, we're going to redesignate this to this. So, like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
But I mean, how can I be surprised? I mean, if
Yeah.
you think about anything that's done anywhere can be done anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the reality of it. Like, once a playbook has been written,
Mm-hmm.
people will happily adopt it.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it's almost like, oh, no, that's too dramatic of a example, but
Mm.
someone in power,
Mm-hmm.
anybody who has more power over someone can always take advantage of that other person.
Yeah.
And of course, that's going to happen. I mean, the fact that they used trickery effectively, saying, well, we did it by the law. We put
Oh
it
my
in the
God.
paper.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
put it in the paper that y'all can't read,
Right.
that y'all can't also get to, because it was in, I believe, like San Juan
Mm-hmm.
or San Jose or wherever. It was in like the main
Like on the
town,
capital,
and
I
not,
think, at that time.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I just,
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess just really quickly, right? Like I think this might have happened. I know it happened in the 1900s. So this was after slavery, but these Afro descendants, the descendants of these African
oh,
people.
it says 1970.
Okay. So they had inherited this land, and then the Costa Rican government was like, "Oh, we actually want to like keep this and turn it into a national park and, preserve it even though it was already being preserved." And they just said, "This is our land now." And then, the procedure says that they're supposed to put this, like, advertise that, this change has been made in the local paper, and people have 1 month to dispute it and respond. And they did all of that, but they knew that, like Tiffany said, the people did not either have the literacy or the access to this information.
Apparently, they had segregation laws that didn't even allow them to go. I'm going back to my notes.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't even allowed to go to San Jose. So for you to put something in a
Wow.
place where the people who
Like
could
physically can't access
fight
it.
it,
Yeah.
yes, who could fight it. I'm sure there were other reasons they couldn't access it too, like
Right.
beyond the fact that they weren't allowed to go there. Even if they were, who knows, like accessibility, like a car or whatever, like mode of
Yeah.
transportation, even get there. Because I've been to Costa Rica,
Right.
and I'm sure in the 70s the roads were even worse than they are now. So,
Yeah.
and it takes forever to get anywhere in Costa Rica. Like
Hmm.
there's no highways, or there's like something that felt like a highway kind of, but there's no real way to get around town.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, that's money. That's money no matter what. That's money and time. And
Yeah.
again, they they didn't know
Right.
like that. Oh
I
man,
know.
savage.
Yeah.
I just put mofos ain't bleep. That was my my notes. So
And it's also
I,
just, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I just feel like at this point I might as well just get a shirt and just walk around wearing it,
Yeah.
because I could say that about everything.
Yeah. Wow. I wrote something that I can't read. But it is just also like a tale as old as time. Like it's like, you know, this I mean, and she even mentions it. She's like, they basically did the same thing to the indigenous people in America. But I mean, what was cool, and it not cool because it's like it's a rough situation to be in regardless, but it's like I appreciate that once the community did find out kind of like what happened, they really pushed back and they were like, okay, you got us, you took our land, like you have that, but we're not gonna like not be a part of the story of the land, the stewardship of the land moving forward. And they really fought to make sure that they could be a part of the governance of the area. They fought to make sure that the area remained accessible for locals, that any tourist income was reinvested into the community, that it became an opportunity for employment for community members. So I don't know. It's a rough situation all around, but I definitely respect the fact that, they did not give up and they we're like, we are still here and we're still going to claim like some ownership and some leadership. And I definitely admired that. But yes, so messed up and so
Yeah, I mean their
not
government
surprising.
does the I mean government trash, yes, but there's still, I feel like, things that are more in place to protect the indigenous and protect the locals than we will
Yeah.
ever have.
Ever. Yeah. No.
So
Yeah.
I
I know. The fact
respect
that the
that.
government was even like receptive to it, because I feel like in America, people would have tried to push back and would have ended up in
Yeah.
jail or worse or
Yeah.
something.
I
Just
mean, the
gone
fact that
missing.
I just couldn't believe that they even added a sovereign power as their fourth governing power. I
Oh
was
my God.
like,
Yes. Where? Yes. Oh my God. Thank you for bringing that up. That was amazing.
I was, I was like, oh, say word? Like
Yeah.
y'all are okay, okay, I
That was
get you, I got you.
huge. They changed their constitution
Yeah.
to accommodate in
Yes.
2003. Like
Yes.
I don't know when the last time our constitution was changed, but I think it was a long time ago. Even though our
Well,
president like blatantly ignores it, but it's cool.
that's what's crazy. Like we were talking about the Constitution this weekend,
Yeah.
and they were talking about the 13th Amendment and the fact that we still have slavery legally in our Constitution in reference to people who are imprisoned,
Mm-hmm.
which we all know, like police. I'm just gonna,
Mm,
I'll go down a rabbit hole, but like,
mm,
yes, constitutions can be changed.
yeah.
They can. Now, I'm more terrified of the ending of birthright
Wow.
citizenship, which I learned a lot about this weekend, which is terrifying,
Hmm.
as far as its origins and who it was originally for. But like,
Ooh.
I'm more afraid of our Constitution changing for the worse
Yeah.
than the better. Like,
Right.
they at least their Constitution changed for the better,
Yeah. That's
and
amazing.
yeah, and they have someone to represent them within a governmental space to advocate for what they want.
Right. Yeah. That is huge. I almost forgot about that because, yeah, a fourth branch of government that includes the sovereign power of the people. I don't even, like, my brain can't even conceptualize. It's like,
It's like,
in
what? What
my,
is that?
yeah,
That's the
right.
thing.
Yeah, the people's opinions matter not just enough that like their elected officials, can represent them, but that they can represent themselves within the context of the government. Amazing. Revolutionary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I think what else stood out to me was that, throughout the chapter, and I think even in earlier parts of the book, Tara has kind of like foreshadowed this idea of maybe moving to Costa Rica. I don't know if this will actually happen or not, but she kind of like hints at like, wow, I feel home here. And like Maria came here and she made a home for herself. And, she was an outsider, but people came to accept her. Maybe I could do something similar. And she kind of hints at this a few times throughout this chapter. But towards the end of it, I think that once again, having talked with these community leaders, I think she came in with these rose colored glasses, but then got a closer look at what the history of Costa Rica is, how Black and brown people have been treated in Costa Rica, the fact that racism still exists and is like prevalent in Costa Rica, the way that the government has stolen from these people and these people have had to fight so hard to continue to be a part of the country's leadership. So yeah, I think by the end, she's somewhat disillusioned, and I think that she has a lot of uncertainty after everything that she's learned. And then one other thing that she experiences, so in addition to kind of like this disillusionment, I think she's also like conflicted at the idea of being an outsider. So she talks about how, you know, when she has a day off or a day to herself, she kind of like roams around Costa Rica and she goes to like, I don't know, she notices yoga studios and she goes to like a juice bar and gets like a fresh pressed juice. And like, she starts to notice the demographic of a lot of the people who are in Puerto Viejo. And they are mostly like white Americans and Europeans who, have come, bought up cheap land, cheap property,
Yeah.
and then essentially like colonized it. Modern day colonization totally gentrified the area and yeah, popped up all of these like cute niche little
Very American,
very
European
super American
luxuries.
things. Yeah. And yeah, they're just kind of like obviously making land and property inaccessible to locals, but also just completely changing the landscape and like the sort of social cultural ecosystem of this place. And I think that that starts to weigh on her too. And she's thinking about things like what role would she play in this ongoing settlement and how settlement can turn a community against itself. She talks about how communities in Johannesburg are like amped up with security and how people have fortresses outside of their homes basically for security guards, which I would be really curious to see what this looks like because that sounds so dystopian to me. But the security towers are staffed by locals who are being paid to protect residents from other locals. So it's like this almost like divide and conquer kind of feeling. So yeah, I think she's just thinking a lot about all of that and yeah, feeling a little bit less certain. But
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves a good juice bar.
I know.
She she was like, I am not mad at the juice bar, but I am.
Yeah.
It's always this weird feeling of being the gentrifier and fighting gentrification. And it's
Yeah.
like, because even when I moved to New York, I moved to um it's so difficult because Brooklyn and its neighborhoods as they get gentrified, their identity changes.
Mm.
So I believe I was in Bed-Stuy, but when I rented the apartment, they called it Clinton Hill. And
Mm.
if you know anything about Brooklyn and if you know anything about New York, or at least if you know anything about the Barclays Center, which is ultimately what really kind of started to create this ripple effect of gentrification. A name, Bed-Stuy did not used to be a neighborhood you would be proud to say you lived in. Now you would. Just like Brownsville isn't necessarily a neighborhood that people would be like, I'm up in Brownsville, popping, like I know people who are from Brownsville. I've dated people who are from Brownsville. Like it's the hood. It's very black. But they just keep pushing further and further south into Brooklyn. And, you know, as someone who would love to buy land or property in another country at some point, there is this complex conversation of what constitutes gentrification. And I have so many things that happened to me over this weekend. I don't know if it was something I read, watched, or was in conversation with, but it might have even been social media, but it was kind of like, well, gentrification isn't just moving to Brooklyn. Me just moving to Brooklyn doesn't mean I gentrified it necessarily, but and then I guess there's this argument that it's the landlords, people who are raising the prices. Is it the people who are raising the prices, or is it the people who are coming in and paying the prices? It's like who's really at fault?
Yeah.
And then there's another thing of me, if I were to buy land somewhere and then just r- build a high-rise apartment that nobody there could afford. Yes, I would be fully immersed in the culture of gentrification. Or if I were to buy a condo and only Airbnb that condo, is that gentrification? Or if I Airbnb it half the time because I don't want to be in New York in the winter, like, is that gentrification? Like, am I gentrifying a community because I'm using it partially as investment property, partially as vacation property?
Yeah.
And the bad part about it is that the place that I want to buy or move to at some point has a bunch of built up property, and I don't know what the locals could afford. I don't know. And so I think it comes down to being immersed in the community, learning about the community, understanding the community and their needs, and being sympathetic to that, because I don't know if I would feel good about buying a condo that half the neighborhood, can no longer afford. Like I
Yeah.
would feel gross.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I know. I would too. I wish more people had that had that like moral sort of code. But yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. That's such a whole other conversation, because I living in New York, like I just kind of always assumed like, oh, before I knew really anything, like I was like, oh, I'm black, like I'm living in Bed-Stuy, like I'm not contributing to gentrification. It doesn't matter where I spend my money. I'm a black face in Bed-Stuy. So therefore, this is for me, like, and it's like, whoa, calm down.
yeah,
That's the wrong
yeah.
attitude to have.
I had to learn that one the hard way. Wait, black people can be gentrifiers too?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It is interesting to think about though, like how, because I do also think there's a conversation to be had about like what is the line between like actually like investing in a community and like actually trying to improve like the economic and like, other social outcomes for the people there, versus like gentrifying and like pricing people out of those places so that like other people can come in. And I don't know how all of this is like linked with capitalism, but I feel like capitalism makes that line incredibly thin. Like it's just a really hard balance to strike.
I think it
Yeah.
just comes down to at the root of it all, because here's the thing, where are people going to go?
Right.
Like, we can't keep displacing people,
Yeah.
and I know New York has this whole like contract where they have to have certain amounts of low income housing, although even that process is very nuanced. Like, I tried to get into low income housing because I moved into New York and was very much low to no income, but by the time I got admitted, maybe 5 years later, no lie, I got awarded an apartment. I didn't meet the criteria anymore. Like I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not low income anymore.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's like, but somebody could have been in the reverse of that and been completely unhoused and have like no technology to even get that notification that they got the house. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's to me, if systems aren't put in place to protect a few things,
Right.
where people can sleep, where people can work, and the quality of food that they receive, that bottom line, that has to be thought about in every facet of your
Mm.
quote unquote gentrification. If you can't provide those three basic essentials for people, because people have to make some income, a
Yeah.
living income, but they
Yeah.
also have to have food that's going to keep them alive. We can't keep having food deserts in places where people can't even
Mm.
survive. So
Yeah.
I just said all this to say, like, I feel, I'm not going to lie, I feel Tara, because I wouldn't mind a hot yoga studio, and I like
I like those
we
things.
we
Yeah.
I like those things, but then it's like at 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 what cost?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I see, as she's still searching for home, because that's, I don't even know if she went to Costa Rica to find home there. I
Mm-hmm.
know she kind of had this whole story about that not being her first time being in Costa Rica,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious. You know, I thought that before this she realized that she wasn't gonna find home in a place where she connected with her roots.
Mm.
And so it's just interesting that this chapter ends with her kind of realizing that her modern roots are kind of still lingering.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. There's so much, I don't know. I think one thing that like I really like about this book is that it like has made me uncomfortable in ways that I didn't really expect, and I don't know, it's just interesting. I think that she really like takes a deep look and offers a lot of different perspectives. But yes, I think I similarly would feel like, you know, really disturbed by the idea of going and like taking from people. I never want to be a part of that. So I don't know. If I ever have the opportunity to buy property, like I do agree that like it's super important to figure out how are you not just siphoning off of that community's resources, but like contributing, like actively contributing to like the success and growth of that community and the people who live there. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's like a super clean answer, but definitely important to think about. Shall we move on to chapter 12? Are there any final thoughts for chapter 11?
No, I mean, I had a lot. That was a lot of a chapter, but I think
Yeah.
we definitely need to move on to chapter 12.
Okay, cool.
Subscribe
Chapter
now and
12,
join the
Tara is
BB
in
Book
St.
Club.
Croix, St. Croix. um, and she was invited here by Dr. Justin and Dr. Ayana, who she met during her training program, her initial training program with SWP at the very beginning of the book. And when she gets here, she's surrounded by the most Black archaeologists that she's probably ever seen in one place. I think she says there were maybe about 35 of them there, from like actual, working, practicing archaeologists to students who are in college and in various advanced degree programs. It was so cool to see like all the schools that were represented, Spelman,
Yeah.
Howard, HU.
Yeah.
But
I wish I could say the second half of that, but I'm not gonna
I
do
mean,
it.
I didn't even go
Not
to
gonna do it.
Howard, so I can't.
I'm gonna respect.
I just
I think you can say the first half.
Yeah.
You just can't say the other half. That may not even be a rule, but I'm making it a rule. Like, I wouldn't even disrespect y'all.
I know. I only claim it because I'm from DC. Like I did not go to
You
Howard
you can
at
get
all.
that. See, you can get at least that half because you got that. I can't even say that. I'm not even gonna say any of it. I'm just gonna say peace and blessings to all all of my HBCU graduates.
Yeah.
I respect and envy your experience.
Crazy. My mom went to Hampton, which is like the not real HU, but
Mhm.
it's so crazy that like that's even a conversation. Like, oh, well, I guess that's, I don't know. It's Howard that claims they're the real HU, but duh. No disrespect to Hampton because my mom went there and it's also an excellent HBCU. Anyways, cool. Well, yeah. So she gets here. There's so many black archaeologists, which is just so cool. And we learned a lot about the history of St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Caribbean, and the role of these places in the slave trade. I think we kind of touched on this a bit last chapter, but Cece, just the person who ruined
just be out.
everything.
Just out in them waters.
Yeah, just kind of arrived in St. Croix, I think in St. Croix in 1493. And yeah, I don't think I realized, like you said, I didn't realize that he just showed up, popped up on the scene in 1493. I knew that he was in what is now the Americas, or in, I guess, the United States, but yeah, I did not realize how extensive the damage was. And I didn't realize that St. Croix, yeah, it was such a major market for slave labor to the Americas. I didn't realize that. I don't know.
I mean, those ships were destined for the Virgin Islands. That was
Yeah.
their like final destination because I guess they were trying to get sugar or whatever,
Yeah.
things that they were gonna sell people for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I too. This was definitely a very educational chapter for
Mm-hmm.
me as far as, and it's kind of weird because it's like you understand the diaspora,
Mm.
but you don't fully understand the depths of the diaspora and like
Yeah.
why are there brown people in all of these places?
Yeah.
Like why are people who have skin the same as I in another, like you don't I just don't think, I just feel like I had a very one-sided view of the slave trade
Yeah.
and slavery in
Mm.
general. And it almost not that I want to own it, but it almost feels selfish like no, America was the birthplace of slavery and we were the enslaved, and cuz in my mind
Hmm.
that's what happened. The ships went from Africa to the US,
Yeah.
and that's what we did here. I feel so dumb or ignorant
Hmm.
to the fact that Brazil, like, I think the biggest note I wrote was like 40% of people were taken to Brazil and
Hmm.
40% were taken to the Caribbean. And I'm like,
Yeah.
mind explosion emoji. I was like,
Right.
Africa was literally the epicenter of the world and was the most abused continent in the world. Like
Yeah.
they were just like, and I'm like, why? I
Yeah.
know no one can answer this question. I don't know. It's just, is it because of its location? Was it the location?
Hmm.
Was it the skin? Was it just this? Oh, their skin is so different
Hmm.
that it was just like, I'm just trying to understand, like, why did this become this explosion that it became this big, massive U.S., European, Caribbean, like this? It's just wow. Like, why were we the ones?
Mm-hmm.
And by we, I mean our ancestors, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I
Yeah.
just, it's just
I
kind of wild.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I have similar questions. And I mean, maybe skin color had to do with it. I mean, I know that Africa had like a ton of like resources, natural resources that people, coming from Europe wanted to exploit. So I'm sure that that's part of it. I don't know technologically how advanced. I don't even like the phrasing of that, but I feel like because people on the African continent probably just had a different way of living, like, and Europeans had a different way of living. And when things are different, I feel like it makes room for people to kind of like assign value to
Exploit it.
certain things. Well, to assign value to
Yeah.
certain things. Like you can say this is
Okay.
different, so this is worse, or like our thing is better because it's different from your thing. So I don't know. I just wonder like if just like I wonder if like I think the African people were like deeply connected to the land and they had a lot of like wisdom that they gained from like, oral history. And like, I think there was just like a different way of living and I imagine there was probably like different values and a different priority system. And I think that like European people, similar to what they did in America, they were able to like kind of like call these people savage, like indigenous people savage, and subjugate them just because they didn't, you know, I don't know, like have what European people at the time considered like, an advanced society or civilization. I don't know. I think that there's probably a lot of factors that go into answering that question, but unfortunately, I think when things are different, people use that as an opportunity to kind of like rank them in terms of like what's meaningful and what's not. Does that, I don't know. That's just like some
Yeah,
very rough thoughts, but
I
yeah.
know, and I appreciate your attempt to even answer
Yeah.
unanswerable question.
Yeah.
Like I don't expect anybody to have the answers. I guess it's just the far-reaching nature
Yeah, it's
of the
crazy.
slave trade
Yeah.
is just and I guess and it's also interesting because of how also very disconnected I feel like all of these entities are. If we talk about the Caribbean, if we talk about Brazilians, if we talk
Mm.
about Americans and Africans, all four of those, like, we're so interconnected, but in my mind I feel like we are so astronomically worlds apart. Like all,
Yeah.
like we, as if we don't even see each other in each other, almost, in
Yeah.
some in a lot of those instances. I feel like black people are always seeing ourselves in everybody because we don't want to connect with America. But it's just interesting because if you think about it, like how proud again, event I was at yesterday, they have a wave your flag moment, and you see the Haitians with their flags and
Hmm.
the Jamaicans with their flags, and you see no American flags, at least not being waved around by black people.
Yeah,
And
no.
so it's
But
like that pride of place.
yeah.
We don't have pride of place.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Tara's looking for home, because it's like you want to be proud of where you are or where you've been or where you from. I mean, I get that some people are like, yeah, I grew up Brooklyn,
Yeah.
but
It's
people will
different
scream
though.
Brooklyn and then also scream F America. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that. It's
And
you.
there's such a huge Caribbean
You.
population in Brooklyn. Like, so half the time they're like
Yes.
Brooklyn and Jamaican or like,
Yes.
whatever. So, yeah.
And that's a very East Coast thing because we're in Missouri.
Missouri.
Ain't nobody like
Yeah, big up.
people. I mean, some people are like South Side, but that's because they're gangbangers and
Yeah.
like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
have the South Side,
Yeah.
but like, it's just a different. It's just so
It's very
different.
different.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. I feel like I went away from your. You were
No, that
giving
was
a
good.
very beautiful
I
breakdown.
don't know. I mean, I feel like that's what we do, like we're just kind of like
It is what we do,
dissecting
but
and inspecting as we go. And yeah, I think that was totally great. Yeah. But yeah, I guess to get us back on track. Yeah, I learned a lot also. Like, I mean, it makes sense. It totally makes sense, but I didn't realize that the Caribbean was like a hub basically where like, like enslaved people would then be further distributed to other places in the Caribbean and in the US. I also, one thing that really blew my mind is I did not know, and I am curious, like I would love to do more research into this, but she says slavery was institutionalized in the Caribbean and that it was Barbados was the first place to initially codify the slave code, which defined human beings like
how the
as
American. Yeah.
property. And that ended up passing to the United States, and I think that really changed
Uh-huh.
just the what it meant to be enslaved. Like it meant, it was just a totally different experience before this was codified from after. From what I've understand, and I did not know that. That was wild.
Well, reading is fundamental,
Yeah,
and I don't know what other books. I'm sure that information is somewhere else,
yeah,
and why I think I officially love this podcast
yeah,
because I was like, I did not know that,
yeah,
and if you would have asked me, I would have bet the whole house that the slave code, like all that originated from the U.S. There's
yeah,
no, like, you couldn't have told me otherwise unless you gave me a book and I read it. But
yeah.
I,
That blew my mind.
yeah, that was one of my biggest notes. I was just like, holy crap.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I definitely want to know more about that, but that was wild. But then she ends up spending some time talking to the scientists that are there. She spends a lot of time talking to Dr. Justin. I'm putting some respect on his name because I feel like he called that out. He was like, he called every archaeologist by their full name, including the title. And I don't know his last name, but we just gonna call him Dr. Justin. But yeah, he brought up some really interesting points. He asked about what does it mean to indigenize and to restore a place versus decolonize or withdraw. So like a lot of times we talk about decolonizing, but that is like, presented this way, it's only half of the equation. Like the next step is to re-indigenize and to like rewrite the narrative of like indigenous people in whatever the location is. And I thought that was pretty, I don't know, profound. Like it's something that I don't think many people really spend a lot of time thinking about. Like I feel like we just assume that decolonizing is good enough, and we don't even really do great at that.
Yeah, but it's like it's like if a tornado hits and the tornado comes and then it's like off into the wind and it's all on it, you've done the damage.
Yeah, right. How do
Okay,
we
yeah, you're
repair?
gone now.
Yeah,
But like
there has to be some
you have
reparation, and not
yeah,
just
you
reparation, but
have
yeah, rebuilding. Sorry, go ahead.
oh god, that word. So many good conversations about reparations this weekend.
Wow.
Oh, I wish everybody was with but because I think a lot of black people hear that word and they don't really understand it's not a
Just
check.
money. Yeah.
It is not a check. It is not a check.
Yeah.
It is not a check.
Yeah.
We have to understand a check is not going to repair this here damage that we are reading about.
Yeah.
It is not just a check.
Yeah.
Like, but that is true. You can't just say there's not gonna be any more capitalism. There's not gonna be any more colonization. Like that's fine. You don't want we're bye. Let's go away.
Mm-hmm.
I
How do
mean,
you make it whole?
could things be rebuilt and revitalized? Possibly, but at the sacrifice of what? Like something's going to give.
Mm-hmm.
Like it isn't just gonna happen out of like pixie dust.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know. An interesting thought. And I mean, at least in America, we are so far out beyond just as a country thinking about even like we are just leaning hard into colonization.
oh yeah,
So yeah, don't come here, guys. It's rough.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think
I mean, I think unfortunately now people know that.
no,
I think
people
before
know
people didn't know it.
the American
Now
dream is
they're
a
like,
nightmare.
they're like, I don't need that passport stamp. I'm good.
But yeah, I think all of this came up just because she was asking him, like, someone had brought up previously, like, Black archaeologists tell the story differently. They ask different questions, and she's kind of just wondering, what are some of the questions that you ask that are different to your white or non-Black counterparts and how they might approach this work? And I thought that was really interesting. And then he also talks about the environmental impacts of slavery, and that's something that, like,
that part.
yeah, I mean, I had known that environmentalism and like that these issues had been like we are building up to like hundreds of years of issues, you know, like environmental concerns didn't just pop up in the past 5 or 10 or 20 years. Like we've been living this way for a long time. And so I've known that like environmental destruction was significant, has been significant for a long time, but I don't think I realized that it dated as far back, or like the impacts could be felt as far back as like the 1500s. And I certainly didn't think about the direct environmental impacts of slavery. Like, but it makes so much sense. Like literally there was deforestation that needed to occur in order for plantations to be built. I certainly hadn't thought about like the mining of coral. And I don't remember what she said that that was used for, but you know, I've heard it said, I don't know if it's the sea or if it's the Amazon, but the ocean is just, it controls so much of what we experience on land. And she talks about how, or Dr. Justin talks about the impact of the mining of coral and the direct impact that that had on the sea, but then also the consequences that we experience on land of like, you know, the amount of rainfall that these countries experience, the flora and fauna that became extinct because of this. And that is just so, what is it called? So like that's like I don't even know how to like wrap my mind around all of that. Like yeah, I just had no idea.
Yeah, the sad part is, I feel like we're clearly feeling the effects of all this.
Yeah,
You know, whether
right.
people, well, if you're listening to this podcast, you do believe in climate change. So I'm just going to let y'all know right now.
You believe in
If
climate
you're,
change.
yeah, if you think it's a fantasy and mystical book that we just made up,
Yeah.
then goodbye. But I think I think the scary part for me is I do know there's obviously things in place to help with revitalization of coral reefs,
Mm.
but I'm just like, how can this damage be reversed?
Yeah.
Like, because it just feels so permanent. I don't
Yeah.
like, I feel like the environmental element is always so pushed aside. Like I sat in on a workshop, and it was of course the farming workshop at this convening, and it was, you know, the guy leading it made a comment about, you know, I understand that education is important, and immigration rights are important, and you know, LGBTQ rights are important, and there's all these things that we've been talking about all weekend, and they're all very important. But it's like the environmental conversation got pushed aside to this little side workshop, and it wasn't a part of the main stage conversation.
Mm.
And he's like, if we don't eat, we don't live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, it was just like this, it was just kind of like this moment of like, and the lessons that used to be passed down from generation to generation, the farming knowledge, how to grow and sustain food and land, that knowledge does not exist.
Mm-hmm.
So if your only reliance on food is at a place that if it shuts down,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Really? Like, this is real. Like, you don't eat. It's not even about the availability of food or the access to food or the affordability of food. Like, you don't even have the knowledge to do something about it. You don't even know how to go forage in the woods if you needed to go
Yeah.
get and figure out what
What
mushrooms can you
woods?
eat.
Yeah.
I know the little bit even is.
Yeah.
Like, if if we ever hit that critical point, which is not impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, we
We've already
already got
done
neighborhoods
so
that,
much irreversible
like,
damage. Like 99% I think I remember reading something like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like something like 99% of gosh, I would have to find that quote. It's in this, maybe I found it in a book called Sapiens. I'm not sure, but something like 99% of the species of animals since modern human history have been like eliminated. Like within the past like 200,000 years, we've managed to get rid of like 99% of like all wildlife, which is like really crazy. Yeah, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's just like we've done
No,
so much so fast.
I just think that I think that moment in the book, also similarly to this conversation that we had, it's so it's such a big part of the story.
Yeah.
And it almost could be its own book. And it's almost like, where is the guide? Where is where are the tools to help us be prepared?
Yeah.
Cuz there's a few black farms. There's I just like I guess I just asked the question.
Yeah.
If all the Whole Foods closed tomorrow, what would you do? And I say Whole Foods, but I mean every grocery store
Mm-hmm.
in America. If every fresh produce based grocery store closed tomorrow, what would you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fact that I don't think a lot of people can answer that question is terrifying.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, if all the guns disappeared, oh my gosh, are you going to be safe? What do you do? If you can't eat, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like this slow chipping away at our ecosystem, starting with slavery, is like,
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, yeah, the week. Oh, God, there's so much that we could talk about when it comes to like environmentalism. And yeah, to think that like the role of slavery in that is just something that I hadn't even considered. And I don't know what we do about that now, but I do feel like it's important to like include that in the story. But generally speaking, we should just do something about the planet. You know what I mean? I just Googled it. And over 99.9% of all species that have ever lived on Earth are now extinct. But apparently, according to The Guardian, since 1970, humans have wiped out 60% of mammal, bird, fish, and reptile populations, which I don't even know what those two statistics mean together, but like, I don't know. Anyways, that's a whole rabbit hole that I could go down, but yeah, it's wild. And yeah, it certainly did not occur to me like yeah, just even thinking about like just the impact of the ocean, like, so I don't know, so much to think about there. But another thing that he brings up that I thought was really interesting, because I think, we've been talking a lot about like this feeling of identity and belonging, and in particular African Americans feeling like Black people in America, Black Americans, there we go. Those are the words I'm looking for. But in particular, Black Americans, like really kind of struggling with this feeling of restlessness and like a lack of belonging. And she asked him about that, and he says that he sees himself as a child of the African diaspora as a whole. And I thought that that was an interesting response to that question. But he says, he talks about like even being able to trace your ancestry back to a country isn't really good enough because of the ephemeral nature of these locations. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that country might not have even existed. So where does that leave you? Like, what does that say about, where you're actually from? And yeah, I think it's like really interesting, an interesting perspective that it sounds like, he's chosen not to be fixated on the idea of like where his ancestors came from. And I don't know, has just like a different attitude and approach to how he sees himself. And I think that like because of that, he feels like he has belonging anywhere. I don't know. I just thought that that was really, really interesting. Yeah.
I just felt like it was a more peaceful
Yeah.
way to look at it.
Totally.
And it makes me less, because yeah, I don't know what those DNA tests really trace and how far back it's, gonna take you.
Mm-hmm.
But I think to know where you really, 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 really come from is almost impossible because of the ever changing nature of the slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
also, I don't know what does it, as we have, at least is what I've gathered from this, how much of an impact is that gonna make on you? I mean, is it gonna allow you to go out and buy a Jamaican flag because now you can say I'm 22% Jamaican, or
Mm-hmm.
like, but I ain't never been to Jamaica, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm Jamaican. Like, I think if you can feel connected to any place that you go where you see people who look like you, who, you know, it just, I don't, it made me feel less like I needed to get that test. I
Yeah.
know we
Yeah.
started out with, let's go.
Yeah.
We want to know where we come from.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but do I? Like, I don't know if I do
Yeah.
anymore.
I definitely still
I'm,
do. I just want to know. I just want to know. Like I just want to know. Like it feels like this giant question mark, and I don't know what the significant. Maybe I'll get the results and I'll be like, "Okay, cool." And like I'll never think about it ever again. I don't see it like, I don't know. I don't have enough money to go to Africa right now. So I don't see it like,
going on an expedition to
yeah,
reconnect with your roots and
yeah,
feel the bond and touch the soil and
right,
walk the walks
right.
and
And having read this book, I've managed my expectations, and I don't, even if I could go to Africa and like experience these places and the people there, I don't expect to like necessarily be like, to feel like I'm home or to be welcomed, but I just want to know what made me. Like I want to know the ingredients to as best I can. Like I am just very curious about the ingredients that have made me, and I don't know why that feels important, but I'm just itching to know. Like I hear people like talk about their backgrounds, and like my partner's like Irish and
yeah.
Scottish ancestry. I'm like, that's so cool that you know that. Like, what do you do with it? I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's just cool that you know. Like, yeah. So,
I do think there's a sense of pride that people get when they can
yeah,
speak to their origins and say, I'm Italian American, I'm Brazilian American, I'm Colombian, I'm this. I do think
yeah,
there's a sense of pride, and I think that's honestly why a lot of Black Americans don't feel that pride for where we are,
mm-hmm.
because
It's
it's
just I
like
just ended up here.
there's been so, there's been so much ugliness
Yeah,
for so long, so consistently. What is there to be proud of?
yeah,
Like, really? I mean, yes, you can be proud of little Johnny and your kids and your, this and that, but at the root of it, at the heart of it, this whole all encompassing sense of pride and place,
mm-hmm.
I don't, I mean, I was never even like proud to say I was from Missouri. It was always a whole thing. And
Hmm.
coming to the East Coast, oh, you're from the South. And I'm like, Missouri is not in the South. I know everybody on the East thinks everything else is either West or South. They don't think the middle exists.
Yeah,
But I was just like, I was happy to. It's just nice to tell. I'm from New York, even
yeah,
though I've been out this way for 12 plus years. I don't even. I know this isn't my home. You know, I didn't grow up on the streets of Brooklyn,
mm-hmm.
and so yeah, it's like you just feel like you don't exist anywhere,
Yeah, yeah.
and
It just, I don't know.
I think
I just want to know.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm probably gonna do it. I'm not saying I won't do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, whatever.
I I currently cannot afford to do it,
Yeah.
but I
Ooh.
would like to do it eventually.
Yeah. I'd be
So if
curious to know.
anybody wants to send me a DNA kit,
Yeah.
holler.
Yeah. Well, I know they were on sale for a little while. I got mine when it was on sale, but yeah, I'm questioning whether or not I'm actually going to take it, but if I do, I will keep folks updated. Um, but yeah, I mean, I agree that like, I think ultimately like if you're striving for just peace, like even if you, whether you do an ancestry test or not, I think that it is just like I'm sure that there's like this contentment of just knowing like I belong and it doesn't really matter where I come from, you know, I know that I belong because I understand my history and I understand, I understand the history of like the slave trade. I understand the history of like my people as a whole. And yeah, I think that I am aiming for that. I strive for that. And then I guess, yeah, the chapter kind of wraps up as they do a nighttime kayak through this bioluminescent marina, which sounds so cool. And I really want to do that.
I've done one before.
Have you, with the glowworms?
Yeah.
Or, in New Zealand or where? Where'd you go?
Oh, no. It was actually, where did I do it? Because I thought I wrote it down. Yeah, it was on Amelia Island in Florida.
Okay.
I believe.
Cool.
I believe. Actually, if it wasn't there, it was Curacao because
What?
now I'm getting my trips mixed up.
I didn't know that that was a thing in Florida too. That's so cool. I've heard of it in like New Zealand. I didn't even know that it happened in St. Croix. I mean, or in the Caribbean, but that's cool.
Yes.
Oh, I want to do that.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Cool.
It's kind of weird. I mean, it's super creepy just because it's at night.
Yeah.
And it's, but I love creepy. So like full on horror movie type vibes. I think I was more scared because my mom was with me and she can't swim. And I'm always just nervous about her being anywhere near water. Even with the life jacket on, I just get nervous. But no, it's a vibe. And it's creepy and peaceful, but there's bugs and lots of them. And, that part is interesting.
Yeah. Well, during this time, she has a conversation with Dr. Ayana. And one thing that was also really interesting to me, I mean, this should come as no surprise, but she talked about Waco, which we're familiar with as climbers. It is a huge destination for bouldering and trad climbing in Texas. And she talks about how it was like also, a location that had one of the largest seasons of lynching in America. I don't know exactly what that means, but
it's in Texas for those who don't know what Waco is.
Right.
So that shouldn't be super shocking.
Right.
Considering Juneteenth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, I just, again, not surprising at all, but I just did not know that. And I've been to Waco once, but it's like right outside of El Paso, just to kind of give you, or very close to El Paso to give people some bearings. But I've been once and had not thought about that. And it's like, I don't know. It's like everything is tainted. Like, I feel like if I want to go back to Waco, or at least I did, and it's like, I'd be so hard for me to look at it the same ever again. So, but yeah, she talks about the Brazos River and how, now that when she visits there, she thinks about like all of the trees that line that river and how, the people that must have hung from those trees. And I don't know, it's just, I'm sure that there are so many places that have been in America that are stained with this history. Like, I know that, but when it's put in front of your face and you can't deny it and you like have that information, and it just is like, oh, that sucks. Like, I don't know. It just sucks that, I don't know, that I feel like if I ever return to Waco, it'll be hard for me not to like think about that. But yeah.
I mean, do you think it's a bad thing though? Like, is it ignorance is bliss? Like, as climbers, would we want to know about horrific things that happened in the areas that we climb? Because I mean, let's be real. Most, if not all of the famous climbing areas are in these like outskirt, remote places.
Yeah.
Wooded place. Like, they aren't in like metropolitans.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
And I said as climbers. I didn't say as Black climbers.
Yeah.
Even as a white person who, may be listening to us.
Yeah.
Like, and you climb, like, and obviously you're not pro lynching if you're listening to this podcast. So like, how could you, I mean, I don't think you look at it the same.
Yeah.
I don't think you don't climb.
Yeah, no.
To some degree you can now use that to honor the spirit of those people that are there, like when they go back to the slave wreck sites.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, if you now, so acknowledge my spirit and my presence.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm more respectful of the space because I do know of its past,
Yeah.
versus that ignorance of just being like, I'm out here, I'm having fun, and all is well. And so it's just acknowledging. I think if you acknowledge, and keep
Yeah.
climbing and be safe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you bring up a good point, and I think that that's true, and I think that that's like a an important perspective to hold. I've definitely like been in climbing locations where, like I'll look at a guidebook and I'll see the name of a route, and the route is like, really racist or something like that, and it can be triggering. So I don't know. It's a balance. It's a balance. And I think it's definitely great to like, and important to veer and try to shift your perspective on the side of like, I come to this place with humility and reverence and respect. And like, I appreciate and acknowledge what's taking place on this land. And also sometimes it's like, man, like, it's just, it can feel burdensome to, to have evidence and reminders of that history. Like, just so prevalent. But I think that like that's a good, what you just said is a good reminder to like, try to lean into like the acknowledgement and like respect side of things rather than the like, wow, America really can suck sometimes. But yeah, I mean, she talks about, also, and I think this is something that I feel like we have visited this kind of idea earlier in the book too, but just that, humans can kind of be terrible no matter what their background is. And so Ayana talks about like dehumanization being inherent to humans, and how she references a Toni Morrison book called A Mercy, where Toni Morrison basically says that Europeans were only able to dehumanize Africans because other Africans did it first. And just this idea that like, yeah, dehumanization and cruelty can be inherent to humanity. Like it is just,
Survival of the fittest.
yeah. And I mean, it's just as like, we are just as likely to be kind and good to one another as we are to be like, vicious and cruel to one another. And it transcends like race and ethnicity. Like it is a part of human nature, and having to like look at ourselves in that way, and just look at like, again, like this book, I feel like it really can challenge you. Like it's like, right, like we are not totally like black people, African people are not totally innocent in, the story that's being told now, or like what brought us to our present moment. Ayana's like, oh, there's more to that story than death and pain. Like, the story of Black people is so rich, and it's nice to think about that also. Again, talk about perspective shifts. I'm like, yeah, like, Black culture is so beautiful and so rich. And she talks about how archaeology allows her to focus on how people lived. And I never really thought about it that way. Like, I never it seems so obvious and makes so much sense, but it's like you're looking at artifacts and things like that, and it just makes me think of the past. But it's like this is evidence of like how people lived at that time. And
A
so
very real present.
yeah, so yeah, I don't know, I really liked that perspective too. But yeah, I think one of the things that she mentioned that was really interesting was, she says we'll never know the true horrors that our ancestors went through, and that part of her is okay with that, and that she wants that for future generations. And I think that that's also an interesting measure of progress. Yeah, I agree. I think that I am very grateful that I don't have to know what my ancestors experienced and went through in explicit detail. Like I can get,
Yeah.
I'll never have to have a firsthand account of that. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah,
But one thing,
yeah.
I agree, but I do wish that a lot of what I learned reading this book, I do wish I knew that.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I am fearful that
Yeah.
our level of knowledge and access to information is so much greater,
Yeah.
but it's also more complex and easily misconstrued.
Right.
Um, and
Hmm.
and it's like we have more access to information, but we have less information.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't
Interesting.
know how to.
Hmm.
It's kind of wild to me,
Hmm.
and so I get that, and I don't need to know the details. I don't need to go through an immersive experience of a day in a life.
Mm-mm.
You know, we see these day in a life vlogs. Imagine a
Oh
day in the
my
life
God.
in 1913,
Tiffany, don't put any ideas in
1965.
anybody's minds. Like TikTok has already gone too far. Don't do this.
Some
Like,
of them, I'm just saying, I don't need it,
yeah.
but I do, like I said, the complexity of the transatlantic slave trade, the origins of slave codes, and like I do think a lot of what I learned in this book, everybody should know.
Yeah, I agree.
Baseline. I not baseline. Like
Yeah.
read this book. Read whether you with or without us. Read this book. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure there's other books. I'm Barracoon is waiting for me at the
Wow,
library. So as
cool.
soon as I take this book back, I'm picking
Nice.
that one up,
Cool.
and I'm gonna be reading that all throughout
Oh,
my
yay.
getaway. But I
Yeah,
just I need us to know more. I think there's a balance, and I
right.
know that they talk about black joy, which, as you know, I am a big big advocate for black joy, especially in climbing, especially in the outdoors. But I think we have to balance that joy with information, because
100%.
information does prepare you and better understand things. I'm gonna link something in the show notes, because there's currently some
Excuse
papers
me.
that are being written
Hmm.
that's supposed to help black people understand how what's next. What do we do
Hmm.
now? You know, just like they have their project 2025, this is kind of the start of developing a project 2025 for black people, and
Hmm.
I think it's important.
Hmm.
And it's published and it's ongoing, it's being written and added to, but
Wow.
you got to have a balance between joy and information.
Yeah.
Be informed. And I hope that just reading a book like this with us, like, added some information to your, it definitely did for me.
Yeah.
You know, added some information to your arsenal, because I do think there's power in knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Yeah. And I don't think, like, I guess just to clarify, like, I don't think that Dr. Ayana in any way was saying, I mean, she's a doctor, a PhD. She dedicates her life to research. So I don't think that she's suggesting that we should be ill-informed, but I agree that, like, right, it is. And I think, yeah, to your point, it is a balance of, like, having that information and being aware not just of, like, the slave trade, but of the role of African people in the slave trade, and, like, really having a look at ourselves, being exposed to information, like having that information, but also some level of gratitude that, like, we didn't have to live it, and the best that we can do is, like, have a secondhand account of it. And I agree with her in that. I hope that for future generations, like, they'll read about these times and be like, whew, that sounded awful. Thank God we don't have to, like, deal with that anymore, but that they won't, that they themselves won't have to experience it. But yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think this book was, or I mean, we're not done yet, but I think it's been excellent and it has informed so much. And again, I really appreciate the balanced perspective. Like, I really appreciate that it shared some difficult truths and some things that really need to be processed, and, like, how do we, like, fit that into just the narrative and the understanding of what it means to be a black person. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, I know. Okay, so we only got one more chapter to go,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to do one more episode for this book. And if you are listening and you're following along, or if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, I would love, you can go to our website, linked in the show notes, And I just have a question about Black in the waters. I want to have a conversation about Black people in the water, whether it's scuba diving or just swimming or your relationship to the ocean. I definitely wanted to talk more about, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but Yemaya or Yemaya. I know it's Ya because of the accent over the
I
A.
think first time. That's how she says it
Yeah.
in her
And so,
audiobook, at least. But yeah.
oh, okay. Good, 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 good. So I think I would love to get anybody who wants to just share a story about their relationship with water. Then we'll add it to our last and final episode for this Written in the Waters book. So again, visit our website, firstoutdoor.co/books and boulders, or BB Pod actually. But I yeah, I know the book isn't over. It does feel obviously like it's wrapping up, but yeah, this was good.
Yeah.
And we'll let y'all know what the next book is next time.
Yeah, for sure. So many more things that I like. I feel like I need to go through this book again and just take notes. Oh my gosh. It makes me think of, have you ever read The Warmth of Other Suns? I would highly recommend that book. It's long. It's like 500 pages long, but it talks about the Great Migration. So it talks
Okay.
about
Is
the
it Sun SO or SU?
SU by Isabel
Okay.
Wilkerson. And it talks about the migration of Black people from the Deep South to other parts of the United States. So it
Okay.
was so interesting, like how Black people ended up in DC, in Chicago, in New York, in California, in tech, like, well, they were already in Texas, but it just talks about the migration. And I had never even heard of the Great Migration, of America's Great Migration, and it had such in a significant and lasting impact on the cultural and social landscape of America. It's huge. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. But anyways, that book, much like this book, I just want to go back through them again, and like it's like there's so many dates and like events and names that I want to write down and just go down deep rabbit holes on each of these things. But yeah, I feel like this is a book that warrants another read, or at least, like, again, like scrolling through and like highlighting and doing deeper research on so many of the things she shared, because it kind of, it's like it brings up a lot, but it like really only scratches the surface of like all of the information that's out there. So I appreciate it just for like the increased awareness that it has created in me. But yeah, well,
All right.
I
Sounds
suppose
good.
that brings us to the end of our journey today. It was so lovely chatting and going over these
Always.
chapters. But yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up, and be sure to like, subscribe, follow on
Yep, yep, yep.
Spotify.
Share, tell a friend to tell a
Share,
friend.
yes.
And join our book club. Join our virtual book club. We'd love to know what you think we should be reading,
Yeah.
even though this first season is focused on ladies. After that, after the season wraps up, we'd love to hear what y'all thought.
Yeah,
So thank you
absolutely.
for listening, watching, engaging,
Cool.
liking, subscribing, all those fun things.
Yeah. And we'll see you next time for the final chapter and the epilogue, and then I guess a quick wrap up discussion. And yeah, again, be sure to share your stories about swimming. I definitely have some, but I'm so curious to hear
Yes.
what other people have to say. So yeah. Cool.
Alrighty.
Until next
Yep.
time.
See y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye. Books and Boulders, an adventure podcast produced by First Outdoor Company for climbers, readers, and everyone in between. Subscribe now and join the BB Book Club.